Yeah, it's a beautiful view, isn't it? And Cat Bell's just coming out, Derwentwater Island, snow on the far fells as well.
From the deepest lake to the highest mountain, its work is very much part of the county's rural economy, and it's just undergone a series of cutbacks and a reorganisation. The National Trust has a big part to play in Cumbria. So what difference will we see in 2026? Will the charity be able to continue to operate as widely as it does? And how is it changing to cope with the views and demands from the people who live, work and visit Cumbria? For this edition of Northern Lights, we're in Keswick to put those and more questions to Jez Westgarth, Assistant Director Operations for the National Trust in Cumbria and North Lancashire. Picture postcard position here on Derwentwater. We've got the geese around us, we've got early morning rain that's kind of given away, there's a bit of sunshine now just breaking through. Jez Westgarth, you've got probably one of the best jobs I think in Cumbria, haven't you?
Yeah, it's certainly a pretty interesting role, I can tell you that. And never one day is the same. I'm not sure any 1 hour in the day is the same. So yeah, lots of interesting things that we get up to in the National Trust in Cumbria.
About your role then, what is your title and what kind of remit do you have? How big an area do you cover?
Yeah, sure. So my title is Assistant Director of Operations for Cumbria and Lancashire. Obviously we'll focus mainly on Cumbria here, but I'm responsible for all of the National Trust's activity across Cumbria. I'm responsible for all of our teams, whether they report directly to me or delivering work here. And ultimately my job here is to try and help everybody enjoy this fantastic landscape, the places that we look after, and ensure that actually we do care for these places forever. The National Trust is all about nature, history and beauty for now and forever. That's our strapline, and that pretty much covers the full remit of my role.
Quite a wide-ranging role you have. You mentioned team now. How big a team do you have? What kind of jobs do they do?
Yeah, so I'm supported and couldn't do the job without my 4 general managers. So they look after sort of geographic patches across Cumbria. And then we have a whole range of people, from rangers to visitor welcome people that you might see out and about, to loads of specialists in our collections team caring for places, our building surveyors, our archaeologists, all sorts of people. I think the other thing as well that I want to mention really early on is not unique but really important here is our farming tenants. We work in partnership with lots of our farming tenants, and we couldn't look after the land here without them. And as well as many other partners, we're a key part of Cumbria, and we can't do this alone.
And in terms of land, the amount of land that you actually look after, I mean, it's a fair old wad. Just 20% I think of the Lake District National Park Authority's area is actual national park, I should say, is owned by the National Trust.
Yeah, it's 50,000 hectares of land. So yes, it is hugely significant. It's significant in the National Trust in its own right, and with that, does come an awful lot of responsibility. Lots of people want different things from that land, and we try and do our very best to balance a set of often competing interests and find the right compromises and balance.
You've had a bit of an interesting past 12 months. We've reported on Business Crack about the changes in the National Trust, not just in Cumbria but nationally as well. 500 in the region, I think, job cuts, trying to save £24 million, I think, budget costs as well. Have you done it, and what effect has it had, or what impact has it had on Cumbria?
Yeah, so as with many organisations, businesses, and actually all of us as individuals, we're not in the easiest economic times at all, and we have to reflect that. We are a charity. We're not here to make money, but we have to make sure we balance our costs so that we can still look after our places and our landscapes and ensure that people can continue to enjoy them. So yeah, we had to make a £26 million saving nationally. We have unfortunately seen colleagues leave the organisation. Many of them have done that in the best way, which is through voluntary redundancy. So that's always the best way for these things to happen. Some colleagues will unfortunately not have roles in the future, but we're still working through, because actually we do have vacancies. So sometimes it's about people moving from one place to another. But we have said goodbye to lots of people, and that's always difficult. As we look forward, yes, we have achieved that, and actually that's affected our operational teams, but also lots of our commercial teams, and we're just in the final stages of that now. But looking forward, we have made savings, and we've made some adjustments to our structure that mean hopefully we can be successful into the long term.
So in a place like Cumbria, you cover Lancashire as well. You mentioned part of your remit. I mean, in terms of people, how many people have you lost? Or is it now half-time, part-time equivalent? How has it worked?
It's actually a very small number. We're just in that phase where some people are still just sort of working through what the final outcome for them is. If we can keep lots of people and by giving them alternative roles, then that's a success as far as I'm concerned, because we do employ lots of people locally. We want our people, they are part of the local communities, as am I. I live here in Cumbria, and so it's really good that people have jobs. So I'm hoping that it's a very small number, like ones and twos. But we have had people leave through voluntary redundancy, so there is change, and we have made significant changes to our ways of working and structures to make us more efficient, that our teams are still just settling in with. So I think, if members of my team were hearing this, they'd say, well, it's not easy right now because it's still lots of uncertainty, and we really want to support them through that process.
Yeah, as you say, it's always a time of change, and nothing stands still, does it? Especially in the world and times we're in at the moment. But I wonder, listen to this in Cumbria. Will they see a difference? And will there be fewer rangers on the ground, or will tenant farmers have less interaction with you and your colleagues? Something has to give, doesn't it? Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I sincerely hope not, because it's about focusing on the things that are really important. Our new strategy is all about that, which is we do have a very broad remit, as you said right at the start, but we can't do everything everywhere. So what's really important? So actually it is really important. The national park still has 18 to 20 million visitors a year visiting it. We need to make sure we help people have a great experience here. So our frontline teams are hugely important. Our ranger teams, our welcome teams, etc. The people that do all the backroom planning and looking after. We just need to think about the priorities and where we apply those. And some places, houses, etc. need more time than others. Our farming work is hugely important because actually that is key to underpinning our plans to help nature recover. We're responsible for some very important landscapes, and we want to do that with our farm tenants.
I know you want to show me some examples and talk about some examples, and also we've just been dive bombed by some geese, so should we move a bit further along and see what else we can see?
Yeah, there's a patch of sunshine ahead as well, so that's always good to be able to stand in. But yeah, I mean, Derwentwater, is a great example. Lots of people come here and visit, and actually really enjoy what is quite an accessible place to come and see the Lake District landscape, and we want to be able to encourage people to do that, for them to be able to enjoy it in a way that works for them. So all those things still matter to us. So I hope that people in Cumbria do not see that much change from what's been an internal change, because it is a lot about our efficiency. Our priorities stay just the same as they always have done, which is giving people great experiences, looking after the landscape and working with lots of people from local communities to farm tenants to partners, and that needs to carry on.
What about places like Wordsworth House, for example, in the heart of Cockermouth? I know there's been interest about how it'll be open in the future, how many days it'll be open, how many hours it'll be open as well, and obviously the role of volunteers. They're very important to that particular kind of property. What's your plans to try and make sure that is still open for the future and still does the job you want it to do?
Yeah, and this is where we can just be quite honest that Wordsworth House is quite expensive to run, as we have been running it. But it's a really important asset for the community of Cockermouth, and we heard that loud and clear when there was concern. So it will be open this year. There will be some reduced hours, but the most important thing about Wordsworth House is actually we think it's got loads more value and can provide lots more benefit to the local community, perhaps through a different operating model than we currently have, which is by charging people to come in the door. The garden is amazing, absolutely wonderful. The house is a really interesting space. So what we're going to be doing this year, and we've committed to do that, is to be talking to the local community about what do they want from Wordsworth House. How can Wordsworth House continue to be a successful part of Cockermouth High Street? How can both the local community and visitors still enjoy it? Yeah. And we're really open to different ways of doing that. I'm just not sure the way that we've run it as a traditional National Trust house with an entry fee is the right way. So let's talk about it.
So what's in your mind, and what I know it's early days perhaps to sort of say what's definitely going to happen, but what kind of things do you think people might suggest?
Well, we've already been talking about how could we make the garden more accessible so that can provide a really relaxing space for people in Cockermouth. I love the garden there, it's beautiful. I think the other thing we've talked about is there opportunity for other businesses and other users of some of the house space. So could that provide employment opportunities? Could that provide places for people to come together? How could community groups use that space? How might that work? So, it's trying to throw our doors open, really, and not have things sealed behind national trust pay barriers where people can't get in. We want more people to use that. We've got to make the finance work. But how do we do that together?
Fair enough. Do you think in the past, in the National Trust and other organisations, to be fair, have been seen as a bit of a closed shop? That, the people who in Cumbria, in Cockermouth or wherever, have been kind of told what's going to happen rather than being asked what they would like to see happen?
I can totally imagine that's how people feel about the National Trust. That's not how I want people to feel about us, the National Trust. Myself, my team, we all try to be really human and kind. We care about this place because we live and work here too. So what we're trying to do is to change some of that perception and actually say we are really wanting to listen. We do have constraints like other organisations and like we all have. I'm really happy always to be open about what those constraints are. I'm really happy to listen to great ideas. We don't always get it right, but we also quite often have to balance a whole range of competing commitments. And my view is let's talk, and that's what we're saying in Cockermouth and for Wordsworth and lots of other places is let's talk.
I think it's interesting. Having read through the plan, I mean the 5-year plan the National Trust has just set out, and there's some quite tough targets. I mean, by 2035, so less than 10 years, to repair peatland, make sure that places like this, the water quality is better than it's been as well. So, and the clock is ticking, but also the bills are going up. So, I wonder as well. It's very laudable to hear you want to talk to people and listen to what they have to say, but if you can't afford to do what they want to really happen, given you've got bills to pay, the rest of it, and things are going up. Aren't you in danger of trying to, be all things to all people, that phrase, but also unrealistically setting up people's expectations because you're not going to make them, you're going to fail?
Yeah, I think there is always that risk, but I think we also need to be ambitious. So, if we think about Cumbria, we've got a really important tourism economy, lots of business associated with that. We've got local communities which are really concerned about actually are they becoming fractured, are they viable? We've got some of the most important landscapes in the country. We've got some really important heritage assets, both in terms of houses and actually the cultural landscape. We met at the site that the World Heritage Site was designated.
Yeah.
So we do have to think about all those things. For me, it's about thinking about the priorities and thinking about the geography. So where do we do different things? So in some places, actually ensuring that we have viable farms is really important. In some places, it's really important that we're investing in our assets and looking after some very important areas. Hilltop, Beatrix Potter's home, really important, that we look after that asset. So we're going to have to balance our decisions, and that's also when we need to be listening of what is important to people. Are we setting ourselves up to fail? Potentially, but I would say that lots of things that you've mentioned, like peatland restoration, like water quality, all those things that are in the natural environment, we've been doing that for decades. So it's not starting from scratch, but it is also recognising that we can't do it alone. And I've said it dozens of times, but with the 50,000 hectares, that's why we need to continue to work with farmers, because we cannot look after that alone. They've got many of the skills. Our job actually is to work with them to bring in money. So we are working with lots of our farm tenants to try and navigate, particularly the agri-environment schemes that the government offers, to get as much of that money invested into our land to deliver benefits for them as farming families and in terms of looking after the landscape.
I completely understand that when it comes to sort of, there's a knock on, you're part of a massive kind of wheel, aren't you, really? Because if something happens on farms, it affects what goes into rivers and lakes where we are today. But also, I wonder about people. The fact that the National Trust, it's a membership organisation. Not everyone's a member, and yet everyone's affected by it. So, for example, you walk past. We mentioned, Wordsworth House. You'll look at Ernty Bay, places like that, which are National Trust-owned property. You don't have to pay to go to Ernty Bay; it's free. How will you kind of spread the word that the National Trust is inclusive, and how will you make it even more inclusive in the future?
Yeah, so one of the things we try and do is to make sure we have a range of offers. So when we look across Cumbria, I can think about places that have some of the best access to nature, like Arnside Knott, that actually there is not a charge to go there. We're really happy we look after that. We don't want to charge people for everything. There are other places where, yes, there is an entry charge, and other places where there's a car park charge. That is part of looking after the places. And the thing that people often don't understand is we are a charity. We're not here to make profit. The money that we make gets ploughed directly back into the places that you have visited. So yes, I really appreciate we're in very difficult times, and for some families actually it's not an option, but there are places you can go for very low cost. We've just recently run out again for the second year the successful winter at Sizer, and we've thought very hard about the right entry price point there, so that we do cover our costs, but we're not making millions out of it, I can tell you.
And did it work? Did people come back?
Yeah, we've had such lovely feedback. It's the second year. I was on site myself just before Christmas. I spent the 23rd of December there, and the stories I heard were fantastic from visitors, from families, lots of multi-generational families coming to enjoy Christmas. And they commented on the quality, they commented on the experience, and they commented on the value for money. Yes, there is still a cost. I'm not going to get away from that, but it is about value for money and people have had a good day with the National Trust. That's what I want to hear.
Is it a balance? I mean, obviously people come to tour to Cumbria, in their millions from all over the world, and some have money to. I was in Bowness only the other day, and there were people there from certainly the Far East, quite happily taking pictures, going on Windermere Lake cruises, spending money. People perhaps in other areas of Cumbria who don't have that luxury of income. It's not their main holiday, for example. They live down the road, they've got the 555, the bus, they spent the £3 to get to wherever. What can you do, if anything, to encourage people who don't feel the National Trust is for them, to make them feel that actually it is, even on a budget, maybe without being a member? Yeah,
totally. I think that comes back to the amount of land we own. So you can get the 555 bus and you can walk on footpaths that we pay to maintain, that we look after. The access on the fells, we have an amazing Fix the Fells team that works in partnership with the National Park and many other partners that actually looks after footpaths. People often don't know that's the National Trust in the background. I don't really mind if they don't know, and I don't mind that they're not paying. Part of our job, though, is to recognise you can come and enjoy places that we are looking after. So the money does go to places that you might see. So let's say, Beatrix Potter's house, but also it goes to places that you don't see and you might not recognise. We're stood on National Trust land where we are now, and you don't realise that actually we do lots of things here. We look after the trees, we look after access, and that's how it should be, because we're a public benefit charity. I hope what you're hearing is we do need to balance some income. We need to be able to pay for our costs, but people can come and enjoy. So people can come and experience things that we are responsible for without paying for it. And we really think about what our regular community facilities. Size is a wonderful example where we get lots of people from surrounding places coming time and time again to walk their dogs. Fantastic. To places where, yes, it's in the middle of the Lake District and there is a car park charge. What I would say is we are a membership organisation. Not everybody can afford it, we know that. It is, I think, £168 a year for a family, but that equates to £14.05 per month on direct debit. You probably only need to come and park twice a month with us on average to get your membership back. And in many places, you don't need to spend any more than your car parking to be able to go and have a picnic, a day out with a family.
If you don't have a car and you're reliant on public transport and you get the main bus from Barrow to Ulverston, you fancy going to Felfoot, you can do it. I know the bus doesn't go far another route, so you can jump off there, but then to get to Felfoot and then to get back, there's a cafe there as well. It's a nice cafe, it's not cheap, but there's a cafe there. How do you hope to appeal to people like that then, who are listening to this and going, well, that'd be great if I had a car to go to the banks of Coniston, but I can't, and the bus doesn't go there, so I'm going to have to go to places where the bus does take me. Are you looking to expand that network to make sure it is more accessible for using public transport and tying up with people like Windermere Lake Cruises, Stagecoach, people like that? Yeah, so some of those options are definitely cheaper than others. So yes, we do promote sustainable travel ways to get to our places. That's partly because we're trying to drive a reduction in reliance on cars, but we know that's only going to happen if there's viable alternatives. Some of that's for us is about making sure there's good accessible places. You can arrive by bike. We've got some places, actually, Air Force is a really good example, that you can paddleboard up there, and there's places to hook up your paddleboard while you go for a walk. But people arriving on bus, yes, you can get to our places. We want to do more of that. We've also got partnerships with Windermere Lake Cruisers, with the National Park, also tying in with things like the Ullswater Bus, which is a community initiative, to help those transport networks work. We
have a role because we have a broad reach to be able to promote and expand those, and that's what we do. We've been paying for a bus connection between Windermere Lake Cruises to Windermere and up to Hilltop. You can buy a joint ticket. That is better value for money. It's still got a cost, I do know that. So sustainable transport's really good for the environment, and it's good for individuals and families' purses.
Okay, so I'm getting the sense that obviously you're well aware of the challenges, the recent history, and looking forward to the future. Can you give us some examples of what the positive side of what you hope to achieve? Talking this time next year, we'll meet up this time next year. What do you want to kind of achieve, and what difference do you want to have made, not just to the park, because it's looking fantastic, especially on a day like today, but also to the image and the people who come here as well, the numbers, and also the background, where they're from?
Gosh, there's lots of questions in there, Nigel, so I'll come back through those. So let's just start with the image side of things. So the National Trust might not be for everybody, but I'm okay with that. What we want to do is give people opportunities to try and to come and see, and just to understand that actually somewhere in the background that you might be walking along a footpath, you might be looking at the fells, it might just be enough to know that actually the National Trust is quietly caring for these places. I'll take that. That would be wonderful. I do hope that our local communities do find that they can have conversations with us and we can talk to them. We're not always going to agree, but I know that myself and my team spend a lot of time talking to people and trying to listen. It's
good to talk. I mean, people, especially in a place like Cumbria, they love the blather, don't they? Just to get it off the chest, and then they feel better for it. You're
and to meet us as individuals, and to not hide behind the National Trust brand. And for visitors, we want to continue to welcome people here. I'm really conscious we've got to have a very careful balance about where we encourage more visitors and where we don't. So for the last couple of summers, interrupted by seagull there, for the last couple of summers, some of our valleys have been overrun with visitors, and that's had a negative impact, and we're working really hard on that, particularly with the Police Commission and others, to try and reduce that. So it's a balance. So that's maybe where we are sort of image, but we're open, transparent and welcoming. In terms of what I want to see in the next couple of years through our new strategy, it's actually really boringly more of the same, because I feel we've had a really successful 5 years. We've built some really great relationships with some of our farm tenants, and actually we've seen a lot of change, and we've provided a lot of support both financially and in conversations, and together I think we have really come to a better understanding between us. Again, we don't agree on everything, but we do agree on what we can do together. We're stood here on Derwentwater, and actually we're looking down into Borrowdale, and we've got a wonderful relationship with some of our farm tenants in there, and the recently designated Borrowdale National Nature Reserve was done in conjunction with our farm tenants. For me, that's a perfect way of actually working together. So I want to see more of that. That's probably what I'm most excited about in the future, is continuing those conversations.
And you stole my last question, which was, are you excited? I mean, you've been through quite a lot. You've got a big task on your hand. I mean, partly it's kind of status quo, keeping things going, business as usual, but also I guess it's rebuilding after quite a turbulent period of change. Your staff, your team has changed and is changing as well. And then, as you've just said very well, the image of the trust as well. You do what you can in Cumbria. It's because it's a national organisation. It gets national coverage, and good and bad. So, are you excited about the future? And can you perhaps give us kind of sort of hints or things to look forward to that people in Cumbria will see in the future?
It's hard not to. Going right back to the start of our conversation, we look after some amazing places, some amazing landscapes, and we get to see lots of different people. I think the things that I am really hopeful around is we continue to work together on the landscape, and we're actually getting to some places where that's been quite challenging in the past. I'm working with farm tenants and partners in Langdale at the moment to try and get some improvements in the environment there, but to give a really important input of public funding into that valley. That's one example.
Because that is a pressure point with, again, very popular with tourists, climbers, walkers, isn't it?
Exactly. And realistically, farming is part of the core of our landscape here. It is evolving and changing, and we need to support that, and we want to do that in a way that recognises the cultural heritage of farming, but also helps us deliver more for nature on our land. I 100% believe we can do that working with our farm tenants. You don't need to have one or the other. So I'm really excited about opportunities to do that, building on what we've done over the last 5 years, and many of our farm tenants are pushing us, saying we want to do more for nature, but we still need a viable farm business. Great. So that's one area. The other thing I want to talk about as well is actually we've got some really exciting opportunities at some of our places for visitors to experience. I can't give you the details right now, but something really exciting happening at Ray this spring.
Ray Castle.
Yeah, Ray Castle. We've moved that because actually the castle is currently closed because we're trying to refurb it and improve it. That's very expensive. But actually the estate is wonderful. It gives some of the best views of the Langdales. It gives some wonderful access to Windermere Lakeshore. Much of Windermere Lakeshore is in private ownership and you can't get there. You can with us. And actually, so there's a really exciting investment there with a trail coming online this spring. We're opening our houses over the coming weeks, so actually our teams are busy getting ready for opening. So we've got snowdrop weekends just about to start at Acorn Bank, just near Penrith. Lovely experience of clouds of snowdrops. We get amazing visitor numbers there. We've got Hilltop, Beatrix Potter's House getting ready for opening. So all of those things are happening and our teams do wonderful programming. So great experience for visitors. The other things that I'm sort of really excited around is some of our future projects. So we're looking at Sizer Castle at restoring what was a historic access ramp for a member of the family, Cecilia. And we're going to turn that into a modern accessible entry to the castle. It's really difficult for people to get into the castle with mobility needs, with wheelchairs. So we're going to open up that historic ramp, which is currently a flower bed, to allow people to get into the castle. So there's some fantastic stuff going on.
Yeah. And you've got the budget, the staff, the team, that know how to do it, despite all the changes and all the recent kind of reorganisation that's happened?
Yeah, because ultimately a lot of the reorganisation was about efficiency. So we have been through some choices, but all those things I've mentioned are things that we're committed to, because ultimately we're still a very large organisation. We've still got lots of great people. We've still got budgets. You are going to see us doing more fundraising. I think people sometimes forget that we're a charity. So we're talking about a large national campaign as part of our looking after our landscapes and nature recovery. I am really keen that we use lots of the examples here in the Lake District, and that national campaign is something that we hope to benefit from. I'm also intrigued about how we can start to tap into other places. So I've mentioned, Ray Castle needs significant investment. So how can we fundraise from that? And when we talk about fundraising, we often think about maybe just a tin with some money or a tap to donate. All those things work, but actually large scale investors, large scale grants. That's the power of the National Trust, that we can bring new money into these places that benefit both the places we look after, but people that visit, and often employment.
And do you think that could be an opportunity in Cumbria, because we've got a large number of employers, massive employers, in this part of the world? Maybe they should be encouraged to put something back, and also help maybe encourage and recruit the staff that they're trying to recruit. Yeah,
I think we can look at that. We also have to look beyond Cumbria, because I think sometimes some of those employers say we already contribute significantly, because it is quite small. Yeah. So I think it is that. It is also the fact that you'll have seen in the press, we've just had a wonderful donation nationally to us of £10 million. So individuals, organisations can all make a huge difference. The thing we need to do, and we are planning to do, is to help people understand, if you give money to us or you become a member, what we're going to do with it. And so it's actually really telling great stories. We've currently got Craghoppers, who's a clothing brand. Yeah. Yes, I'm wearing a Craghoppers top at the minute because we have a partnership with them. But actually they've been using some of their investment to actually support one of our teams, the Build Our Boundaries team, which is repairing walls and fences that is beneficial to both us and the farming community. Happens right here in this valley. So some of that money is going towards supporting work that we do from Craghoppers. It's a great partnership for us.
Yeah, good collaboration. And do you think that's the secret of the future, is making sure that people do feel invested in the work you're doing, rather? And do you think in the past that hasn't been the case, that people haven't really understood, for whatever reason, that this area is run by the National Trust, that wall is maintained by you and your colleagues? They just don't appreciate that.
Yeah, I think we need to do a better job of helping people understand what we do and don't do. And that's not because we want to monetise everything. Yeah. It's actually just really knowing that I care, we care about the places that we look after. We're bothered about communities thriving in the places that we look after. We're concerned when people are saying there's economic pressures. We're concerned when people say, I can't afford to come and visit. So just as we walk back up towards Crow Park here in Keswick, you can see actually that we've got a number of families walking across, enjoying what is actually a fairly level path. It's really accessible. That's one of the things that's really important to us. You don't have to be a mountaineer to come and enjoy the Lake District, but actually you can get amazing views. They're walking across a field just beyond the lake that actually has got one of our tenants, John Stalker's Herdwick sheep grazing on there. Those sheep are part of the designation of the World Heritage Site. So, that's part of having a farmed landscape. Next to it we can see some really amazing woodland, and we can see the fells in the background. Crow Park is one of those wonderful places where actually you can see all things playing out at the same time. People enjoying themselves, our cultural heritage, and actually some really wonderful rich nature as we look across the woodlands and the water. So it's just a great example of all the things that we do to support the landscape and local communities as well as visitors here in Keswick.
The pressure, I suppose, is to keep it like this, isn't it? Trying to encourage people to come, but maybe make sure they're kind of spread around the area. There's other things to see. Yeah,
and one of our long-term plans is actually how we think around a network of trails here, how we think about actually having this place as somewhere that lots of people can access and enjoy. There's a wonderful loop round the lake that is already in place, and yet we need to maintain that and improve that, thinking both about access for everyone to come and enjoy this, and also thinking around actually how this continues to be an area that's nature rich, and also you can see our cultural heritage.
It's a tough job, isn't it, trying to make sure that you're kind of ticking many boxes, making sure that nature's thriving, people are happy, it's accessible as well. It's anyone can come here and enjoy it. It's a balance, isn't it? Surely it's one that is hard to achieve.
It could be hard to achieve, but I actually find that often people talk about the differences, but actually we've all got more in common with each other. So perhaps if you start every conversation by working out what do we want to achieve here, what have we got in common, that's when you get things done.
Just one final question for you. You live and work in this part of the world. How do you switch off? Because surely when you go for a run or go for a walk, it's like going to work, isn't it?
Very occasionally. But let's face it, it's a very big landscape. I do come here. I was here running at the weekend. I live just outside Penrith. This is where I spend an awful lot of my time out in the fells. That's why I care about it. Occasionally, yes, it is hard to switch off, so I maybe don't come on the busiest summer days. But ultimately, I did this job because I've had a career in looking after the environment. I've had a career in working with communities, and actually, what else would you want to be doing but trying to improve things? And whatever anybody says about the National Trust, I know that myself and my team, we're always trying to make things better, and we don't always get it right, but we are here to try and improve things so that we can enjoy it just the same as everybody else. So last weekend I spent all weekend out in the lakes. It's been pretty lovely weather in January, and I shall continue to do that for many years to come.
Jez Westgarth, Assistant Director Operations for the National Trust in Cumbria and North Lancashire, talking to us on the banks of Derwentwater. Thanks to him for talking to us, and thanks to you for downloading this edition of the podcast. We've many more to come, and we're looking forward to more editions where we can take you out and about to enjoy the crack with people in business across Cumbria.